If you want to use the power of YouTube to grow your podcast audience, there are 3 broad strategies. Strategy number 1, record video while you're recording audio. Sort of like I'm doing right here. You can see the software on my computer, my camera. I'm also recording good audio. I'm recording video at the same time. Strategy number 2, convert your finished audio file into a video and then upload it to YouTube. You can have a static background image or use any number of the audiogram tools that exist out there. But is this actually going to work? Does YouTube like this? Is YouTube going to send more people to your podcast? I have answers for you. I'm going to tell you that in just a minute. And the third strategy will be to live stream your podcast. This is simultaneously the easiest and fastest method, and also probably the most difficult. And I'll explain why in a few minutes. Before I break down my recommended strategy to get the most out of YouTube for your podcast, a few things. I've created some checklists for publishing on YouTube, keyword research, and stuff like that you will definitely want to check out. It's in the link in the description below. There's no email required. It's just a Google Doc. I'll link to it. You go check that stuff out. Also, I have a paid course, but I'm releasing some of the videos in my paid course for free. Right here on YouTube. I will talk about them at the end of this video. It's a little playlist I've created. I definitely recommend going to check those out, where I will talk about YouTube setups and basic video editing, in case you want to dive into that. And last up, this video is actually sponsored by Riverside.fm. I've used Riverside and promoted Riverside long before they sponsored this video, FYI. I use them for recording podcast interviews. They do great video, which I'll show you later. Just so I let you know right up front, they sponsored this video. I love them. Shout out to Riverside. Yes. Strategy 1 deals with actually recording a quote-unquote real video using a camera, etc., and then uploading that to YouTube. Now, what I'm about to say might actually be the most important thing I say in this entire YouTube video. So, pay attention. What does YouTube want? The answer is they want more people spending more time on their platform. That's the truth. So how do we do that? Or why is that important? It's important because if you want your video to show up in people's feeds on the YouTube homepage and recommended videos in search, you got to give YouTube what it wants. Yeah, you need to make your viewers happy, of course, but you got to give YouTube what it wants. And you do that by making more engaging and more clickable videos. More engaging, more clickable videos. We'll get into the clickable part a little bit later, but more engaging. I personally think video like this from a camera, you don't have to have fancy lighting or even fancier mics, whatever you're doing already for your podcast. I think that these videos are much more engaging and they perform better on YouTube. That's just my own experience. Some people might argue with that, but I think this is the best place to start. Now, you have 2 options for doing this. Option number 1 would be just releasing your entire podcast. Let's say you do solo shows that are 15 minutes long. You record a video of that, you just straight up upload to YouTube. Let's say you do an interview show that's 45 minutes long. You just record that through Riverside or some other tool, and then you upload to YouTube. Done and done. Option 1, upload whole thing. Option 2 would be to cut it up, right? Cut it up into bite-sized topics. This is a better option if you are specifically covering topics that can be found in YouTube search. Meaning, if you are recording, let's say, personal finance stuff, and you do a little bit of research, which again, I'll get to in just a second, show you how to do. You do a little bit of research and you find that in this podcast episode that you already recorded, you covered topic A, B, and C. And those 3 things, while they might be related, they could be separate, more specific, more searchable YouTube videos. And so you might take your 45-minute podcast interview that you recorded, throw it into an editor, and then make that 3 YouTube videos. We'll get to another bonus tip in just a second, but that's option 2. Upload the whole thing or splice it up a little bit. Now, here are some basics that you'll need for this strategy. Obviously, a recording tool. So if you're doing podcast interviews, again, Riverside is my go-to. They did sponsor this video, but I've been using them for 18 months. I still use them, FYI. I have a whole video comparing remote recording tools that I published over a year ago, FYI. I'll link to that in the description below. You can go check out all the different tools, but I use and recommend Riverside. If it's solo stuff, if it's just you talking on a camera for your podcast, you might get away with just honestly recording straight to your camera, right? Like I'm using a Sony a6400, just put a memory card in that bad boy, and then record. You record your normal podcast. You can always sync audio later, by the way. You might have to do some Googling to figure out how to do it. It's beyond the scope of this video. Or if you want to spend a little bit extra money and buy some, inputs so your XLR mic will come to your video audio, or I'm not going to help you figure that stuff out in this video. It's on the next video. But you'll need some recording softwares and basically a camera. Or you could just use a Logitech or something like that on Amazon for super cheap. A little webcam. It's probably totally okay, FYI. You do lighting, you look at the lighting stuff in the next video, you can use any of this stuff. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars on gear. That I promise you. You will need the basic video setup. Again, check out the next video in this little series, and I go into this in much further detail. Same thing with editing. You probably will want some basic editing tools. You can absolutely do it for free. And then skills. You'll have to learn the basic edits. Again, go check out these videos for more. I'll leave the links to those there. Now, 3 tips, and then we'll move on to the next strategy. Feel free to not edit as much as you think you need to. It doesn't need to be like this YouTube video where I'm constantly going back and forth between my camera and screen share and yada yada, and I have my professional lighting and I'm actually doing some edits. It don't need to be like that. You can actually upload the video of you recording your podcast. You might have to edit a little bit if you do starts and stops and ums and uhs, if you want to take that stuff out. But if you mostly do it in one take, or if you're doing interviews, you don't have to edit quite as much as you think you do. You don't need fancy YouTube videos. What you need is a good YouTube video. And that has so much more to do with the content than fancy editing and titles and all transitions, and you don't need all that stuff. Feel free to not edit that much. The next tip, it is optional, but I like doing this. Record separate intros and outros. Let's say you are recording a remote interview with a guest, and then you download that interview and you're going to publish it to YouTube, etc. I personally like recording a separate intro and an outro because I want to let people know what they're in for. And I don't always do that when I'm recording with my guest. This is an interview with Tim Schmoyer. I actually went back after we recorded and hung up and recorded the intro. Said, here's what this video is, yada, yada. This wasn't for the podcast. It didn't get published on the podcast. It's just for the YouTube video. And then oftentimes I will do an outro as well. And last tip I have for you, if you're watching this in 2021, 2022, stay tuned for YouTube. I have it on decent authority. Actually, it was that guy right there, Tim Schmoyer, who's the YouTube dude, that YouTube is going to be making some changes as it comes to long-form podcast on their platform. I personally love this. I love the idea of just recording the video with the audio and then uploading the whole thing. Again, not cutting it up, not splicing it out, whatever. Separate, intro, outro, that's fine. I love the idea of just uploading it there and having YouTube know this is a podcast interview. I need to show this to the right type of person, letting YouTube algorithms do all that hard work of finding your new audience. And I have it on good authority that YouTube is going to be making some changes that will help you do that. Now's when I'm going to give a really cool shout out to Riverside.fm and more specifically their magic editor. Wouldn't it be nice if you had 2 video files from you and your guest and you could splice them together, right? And just make it look better. Well, they have that and it's called the magic editor. I'm not going to go into a tutorial on how to do this. Oh, I'm zoomed in. I was like, what happened? I'm not going to go into a tutorial on this video. I have a separate video on this magic editor, but it is magic. You select your 2 videos, you hit next. It'll actually allow you some options to make it look certain ways. You can upload your own background images, your logos, and all sorts of fancy stuff, and then just hit export, and it will give you the combined video file. You can do a grid view like this, or an AI speaker view, or it alternates between you and your guest, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff, really. So big shout out to Riverside FM for sponsoring this video. I love these guys. I've been using them for almost 2 years at this point. It's worth it. It's worth every single penny. If you record podcast interviews, go check out Riverside.fm. Let them know I sent you by using my link in the description below this video. Their video stuff is unparalleled. Unparalleled. I mean that. So before I share with you some YouTube SEO stuff, and I have a YouTube publishing checklist that goes through the entire process, you can get these for free. The YouTube description template. Before I get to these and show you my fancier tools, I do want to talk a little bit about the second strategy of using audiograms or non-camera videos, just uploading your audio to YouTube. So here's my honest opinion about just converting your audio to a video with a static image or using an audiogram tool, like Descript or Headliner. I've used these tools and I do like them. Here's my opinion. It's better than nothing. It's not going to do as well on YouTube. It's just not. It's not a YouTube video. It's just a random video with something boring to look at that has your audio file. But I think if you have your processes streamlined and you can do these things super, super fast, it's better than nothing, right? It might send you a few more people, you might get a few views, etc. But here's the thing. I actually still think it's worth doing a tiny bit more work to record video. You will have to figure out the video setup and basic video edits, but I have these videos on YouTube here in this playlist that I think will prove it's not actually that much harder. Making the audiograms is kind of finicky and you have to learn to do that, and that takes time too. It's actually not that much more time to just record the video. Or again, I'm going to show you the one I did with Tim Schmoyer. I exported this from riverside.fm, and this is what it gave me. Like, it gave me the full video. Everything looks nice. I literally just added an intro and an outro, and I uploaded. It would have taken me probably longer to create a nice looking audiogram from any one of these tools. I think it's better than nothing if you can figure out and you really don't want to do video. If you're dead set against recording your videos, by all means, go try it. It's better than nothing, but it's not going to be as effective. It's not as engaging a video. It's not as engaging content, and I don't think it's going to perform nearly as well as doing some sort of recorded video like this with a camera, even if it's a cheap webcam. I really do believe that. Strategy number 3, what about live streaming your podcast? Good news, bad news. The good news is I love this idea. I think live streaming is a phenomenal way to grow your audience on YouTube for your podcast. The bad side is, it's actually hard. For one thing, you have to learn how to live stream, which is different than just recording a podcast episode. Number 2, you have to learn how to make it a show, right? You don't just record your podcast and then have a bunch of dead space as you figure out what you're going to say next, or have lots of dead air while you talk to your guests beforehand. No, it has to be a show. Every single second has to be accounted for, and you have to make it like a presentation, a live stream. It's not just recording your video. There's no editing whatsoever. So it has to be a continuous show, and that is very difficult. It is. Now, if you're into that and you want to start a live stream show for your podcast, go for it. That's amazing. You can use actually the software I'm using right now, Ecamm Live. OBS is a free and open source version. There's also Restream, which I have used, and it actually works really well. And by the way, since Riverside's giving a shout out here, you can also live stream all of your podcast interviews, using riverside.fm. It's kind of bonkers, actually. But I do think it's more difficult to do if you're really into that and you're dead set on live streaming and you think you have the chops, honestly, to make it like a show. Of course, go for it. Go do it. If not, I recommend just recording the video. You can pretend you're doing a live stream, make basic edits later on, and then upload to YouTube. I think it's going to be easier for the average person. I think it's actually going to be a better video that performs better in YouTube. All right, it's time for my YouTube secrets. Not really. Almost all YouTubers already know this, but a lot of podcasters don't. First, let's talk about the hook. Now, what do I mean by the hook? I mean 4 different parts. The title of your video, the thumbnail of your video, the image that you upload, the first sentence or 2 in your description, which will actually show up in people's feeds and on YouTube search results, and then the first 10 to 15 seconds of your video. That is what I like to call the hook. This is incredibly important. One of the metrics that you should be focusing on when it comes to YouTube, if you really want to reach more people, would be your click-through rates, CTR. This is a percentage of people who see your video and then click through, right? If 1 million people see your video, but only 2 click through, that is telling YouTube this isn't a clickable, watchable video, and it's not going to show your video to more people. However, if 1 million people see your YouTube video and 500,000 people, 50%, click through to watch it, that would be incredible. And YouTube's going to be like, wow, we need to show this. Because what does YouTube want? YouTube wants to keep people on their platform by watching more videos. And if people see your title and your thumbnail and the first sentence of your description and be like, wait, what is, ooh, I want to watch that. Click. Higher CTR yields more viewers and more growth for your videos. And that carries over into when they actually click and watch the video, especially the first 10 to 15 seconds. I like to include this in the hook because it's incredibly important. You have to affirm to anybody who clicked your video, yes, this is what this video is about, and then you have to keep them watching. Now, there are entire $1,000 courses dedicated to telling you how to keep your viewers watching, but there are two options to start from. Number one, just get straight to the point. Get straight to your podcast interview. Just jump in. Dive in right away. No 2 minutes worth of intros, 10, 20 seconds worth of intros, maybe, and then get to your point as fast as humanly possible. And the second option would be to inform people why they should keep watching. Tell them what's in store if they listen to your podcast interview. Share with them all the glorious benefits that they are going to get if they keep watching. Share the outcomes, share the benefits, share why they should keep watching. Do that in the first 10 to 15 seconds of your video, and that completes the hook. Catchy titles and thumbnails, and the first sentence of your description, and the first 10 to 15 seconds of your episode. In the description below this video, I have a link to my YouTube publishing checklist. This should walk you through just about every step for after you have a video, going through to hitting publish. There's actually quite a few steps in here that you might want to think about. This is absolutely free. Make a copy of it to your own Google Drive. There's a link below. It also links to my YouTube description template that I walk through right here. And this is also my example. You can see below every single YouTube video that I do. You're welcome to steal this stuff. It's absolutely free. The last thing I have for you is to go watch the next two videos that will walk you through my simple YouTube setups and incredibly simple YouTube editing techniques specifically for podcasters. This comes from my paid course, YouTube for Podcasters. It's absolutely free. It's geared towards you, my friend. Click on those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Adios.